Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome to another episode of the Steelers Q&A. Oh, there we go with the music running back. I apologize. It's Jeremy Betts here with you. It's been a minute now. This is a week off I had last week from doing the Q&A, but I'm back this week and I've got a special guest with me. We've had him on the show before, but here to talk Steelers football with me and answer your questions. It's my good friend Tate. Tate, what's going on, man? Hopefully, we are past what happened this last season and ready to move forward. I haven't talked to you since then. So how are things going for you? How did you feel about the Steelers season and what are you looking forward to this offseason here?
Betts, what's good, man? Little homie JB, man. What's up?
Yep.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me, man. And this kind of started the other day after listening to you and Jeff's Let's Ride on Friday. The whole quarterback talk, yep. Man. And I sent you a message in Slack and said, man, I agree with your perspective 100%. You said, hey, man, you want to come on Sunday? We can talk about all this stuff. So yeah, man, I really appreciate the ad. And I think the Steelers season, man, I was relatively pleased. I mean, I think we are a better team, even though we weren't as good as we could have been. I think we were a better team than many folks expected, especially the prognosticators. We went 5-1 in the AFC North. If Kenny Pickett had played well, we'd have went 6-0. We'd have beat Cleveland in that 13-10 game. And I think we got some building blocks for next year, man. The part I frown upon is the three we lost to the Patriots, the Cardinals, and the Colts in that three-game loser streak. But that was all Mitch Trubisky, right? So he's out of there. So and I think you talk to the OG homie Shannon White, man. We do the pump your brakes together, and he's on the Hangover. Big G and myself are typically telling Shannon, "Come on, man, we're not as bad as you making us out to be, man." I mean, we do have some holes, but all teams have holes. And just to give you a little bit of perspective on a hole, we need a tackle, probably a right tackle. Roger Jones, a left tackle. But I'd rather deal with Dan Moore again than have to just be married to Kenny Pickett. Not that Kenny Pickett can't win the job, but he has to compete for the job. And he has to win the job against credible competition.
Yeah, he does. And when Jeff and I discussed it, obviously a little bit of a difference of opinion, but from himself and then myself, but it was a great discussion. And I think points made on both sides have validity to it. I just think that my biggest issue with where the Steelers sit currently is based on the reporting we're getting from Jeff and Brian, who have an inside source within the Steelers pretty high up in the organization. And he's letting us know that, they're not pursuing a Justin Fields trade or bringing Kirk Cousins. They're not going to attempt something like that because they, according to Jerry Dulac, don't want to bring in a guy who wants to be a starter. That was his verbiage, not mine. And to me, I just thought it was premature to say we're riding with Kenny and a Tannehill type player who's going to come in and be kind of like a not foolproof, like a fail safe, if you will, on our quarterback situation. But he's not going to really take over the job. He's not going to really come in to compete for the job. It's just going to kind of be to support Kenny and give him everything. If that's what you land on after you've made attempts at upgrading the position in free agency, after you've scoped it out in depth, once deals can be made. I mean, you may have made conversations, but nobody's throwing back and forth trade value right now. I mean, you can't even really do that. So, and you're not talking to Kirk Cousins yet. You can't do that either. So if you're making a decision now, you have not gone over all your options and given yourself the best chance to improve the quarterback situation. That was my big gripe with the whole news. So, that's just kind of where I stand. And you said you agree with me. So go ahead and tell me why you kind of feel the same way about this situation.
Well, for starters, man, if at the end of the season press conference, Coach Tomlin said there will be competition at the quarterback position. It's a big year for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
But if you're bringing somebody in that has aspirations to try and be a starter and win a job, what kind of competition is it really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with that part of it. And I was a huge proponent of Kenny Pickett when he got drafted. I was first on the Malik Willis train, because I figured Kenny might have went around 7 or 8, if I recall, to like Carolina or New Orleans at that time. Kenny dropped to 20. Then we got Kenny, and I thought at worst he could be a poor man's Joe Burrow. I was all on with Kenny at that time. After the first season, he had a couple comeback wins the second half of the season after he came in week 4, I believe, against the Jets.
Yeah.
A couple good comeback wins that season. Got us to go 7-2 after the second half. Okay, this Kenny thing could be good. Then this past season, from the kickoff opener against the 49ers, he missed that slant route to Deontay Johnson in the end zone. It just was not a good season. He wasn't making throws. He wasn't really moving the offense. We weren't scoring points. So many things. And then Mason Rudolph comes in. Then Mitch comes in. Yeah, Kenny's better than Mitch. We all know that. Mitch is already out of town already. So Mason Rudolph comes in, man, and he moves the offense. I mean, and I use the difference between when Kenny got his one start without Matt Canada against the Bengals. I think we won that game 16-10.
Yeah.
He did move the ball. It's the first game we got over 400 yards. 2 weeks later, we played the Bengals again. Mason throws up 34 points.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny is just not scoring the points. And I think, and I hope the source that Jeff and Bad have up in the organization is just putting stuff out there, smoke screens out there to maybe create the lack of interest in anybody from the Steelers to maybe bring some of the costs down on a potential, whatever assets they may have to move to try and get somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just, as of right now, I don't think Kenny Pickett is the answer. If he proves he is the answer and can't win the competition against, again, a credible quarterback, then I'm all with it. He wins the job. Let's roll. Let's see what happens. But right now, and even the people that want to bring Mason back, and again, we talk backstage bets. Mason's going to cost more this year than Justin Fields and potentially Russell Wilson if he gets released by the Broncos. Mason Rudolph's going to cost more. And now we're talking about bringing back the guy that was our third string quarterback. And Mason had a good run. It was a good run. It wasn't like the best run ever. It wasn't Joe Flacco taking the Ravens to the Super Bowl back in 2012. But I do think Mason looked so good because Kenny had looked so bad all year, and Mitch. So, we got to put things in perspective, I think.
Yeah, and I do think that stretch with Mitch Trubisky really, really set the bar low. And then Mason Rudolph cleared it so drastically that it was kind of eye-opening to see. But yeah, there's going to be some in the comment section that are, that I respect their opinion, that think Mason Rudolph hasn't shown everything that he's going to be, and that if you bring him back and give him a shot, that he could prove to be a franchise caliber quarterback. I don't see it necessarily. And I also don't think that you should pigeonhole yourself as a team into one line of thinking. That's where I have a problem with, like, the organizational thinking. It seems to be stuck in a rut, and they've got their way of doing things. They home grow their players, and I get that. You want to home grow your players. That's great. But at some point you got to admit, hey, this guy that we're trying to home grow isn't growing. And so we got to do something about that.
Absolutely.
And at least give ourselves a shot to upgrade it. Now, listen, every other position on the team this offseason, the Steelers are going to go into free agency and in the draft, and they're going to say, how can we upgrade this position? Why can't they do that with the quarterback position? I mean, why marry yourself to a guy, like you said, that you have absolute zero certainty about, when every other position you're going to go out there and you're going to try to upgrade it if you feasibly can from a financial perspective? And when we talk about the salary cap going up $30 million this year. And it, the Steelers obviously have some maneuvering to do to get in a place where they can make a bunch of big signings, but it's going to be a lot easier now than it was just a week ago, that from what we were thinking. So you can make it work. You can make whatever you want to work. Omar Khan, I definitely trust as far as the financials go, but do we trust the Steelers to figure out the quarterback position? I'm not sure. I'm looking at some comments here. Brian Miswell said, giving Pickett a starting job for doing absolutely nothing makes our organization a joke. It's hard to argue with that.
Agreed, Brian. Agreed.
It's hard to argue with that. So that one, and then Two Girls, One Stanley Cup says, I'll believe it when I see it. As far as the Steelers aren't pursuing any other quarterback options, she says, I'll believe it when I see it. They can't come out right now and say Kenny needs replaced when he's the only quarterback on the roster. That may be viable thought here, but what do you think?
Hey, Betts. Hey, man. So, which one of these comments want to go on first? Kenny Pickett is the only quarterback on the roster.
Yep.
So arguably we had the worst quarterback play for a team from the quarterback position, no matter who was in the league last year, right? Of the three guys. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the Jets quarterback situation, I would say we were about the worst. Maybe the Falcons.
Right. So bottom the 32 teams, no higher than 28.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So are we saying of those three quarterbacks that played, we're saying we want to come back with two of those quarterbacks definitely to be two of our quarterbacks next year? Yeah. I don't see it, man. The quarterback is the most important position. And yeah, you can make one of these deals and not work, but if you're not swinging for the fences, you're not trying to win, man. So, and I don't think I don't think a second round pick for somebody like Justin Fields is too much. Like I said, for me, Justin Fields is who I want, and Russell Wilson who I will settle for.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead and let's talk about that. So if you had to get three guys in this quarterback room for 2024, what three guys are you doing? Obviously, Kenny Pickett's going to be one of those guys, but you said Justin Fields. Are you doing a Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, and then a rookie type situation, or are you going to go get another veteran, or maybe like a Sam Darnold? What are you doing at the quarterback position if you have your way?
Oh, that's a tough one. I could go either way with the third arm in the room, but I probably, because I think it's easier to pick up a veteran later in the year than it is to get some young talent in your room, some young juice, right? So I like Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, and a young guy, and we depend on the quarterback coaches and the offensive coordinator stuff to coach those guys up, whoever they are. And I talk about Big G made a point of this on the Homies podcast on Friday night. He said Justin Fields gets paid $5 million this season, 5.6 or something like that. Then his fifth-year option is $22 million. So we're talking about $27 million.
Yeah.
We're talking about an average of $13.5 million a season. I don't see that being a big risk. Then after the fifth year, you can decide what you want to do. I mean, if you don't do this with Justin Fields now, you're in the same position with Kenny Pickett next year.
Yeah.
You have to decide if you're going to pick up his fifth-year option. So I really don't get it. But, I'll probably go Pickett, Fields, and a young guy as a prospect that you can, somebody can get in the fourth or fifth round of the draft. I wouldn't mind Spencer Rattler. I like the measurables and the size and the arm strength of Joe Milton. So there's guys in that fourth and fifth round that I could take as a project quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. What's funny is if I've said from the beginning of the process that the way I kind of hope it turns out, and this is going to maybe contradict what I've been saying this whole time, but I'll try to explain it here in a second. What I've said from the beginning is my three-man group that I would love to see. And they might have they might carry a fourth quarterback in training camp. We'll see. But I would like to see, based on what they're trying to do with their quarterbacks for this year and moving on from them if they don't work out, my triple threat here would be Kenny Pickett, Ryan Tannehill, and then Joe Milton III. That would be my project, my swing, big swing in the draft in the middle rounds, because he just got all the tools to be elite. I don't think any of the other guys have the tools to be elite. They have the tools to be okay, to be decent quarterbacks. Maybe if you're talking about like a Spencer Rattler or, somebody along those lines in the middle portion of the draft. But when you're talking about a guy with elite upside, that would be Joe Milton, in my opinion, and not much else in this draft class outside of the top 2 or 3 guys. And the reason I say you end up going with Kenny and Tannehill is that you've got Kenny Pickett, give him one more shot without Matt Canada. And then if it doesn't work, you probably aren't a very good team this year. And then also you have the easiest off-ramp ever next year, because you don't have to keep Ryan Tannehill if he's there as your support guy for Kenny Pickett, and a guy who knows this offense that they're going to be running better than anybody else in the league at the quarterback position. So your off-ramp is super easy. But then again, if it works out and Kenny's actually good, then you have your 5th-year option chance next year, and you get a cheap quarterback for another 2 seasons after this one. So, as far as building the roster around the quarterback, there you have opportunities. But again, my beef with the team is that they aren't even exploring other options. Like, if that's what you settle on at the end of it, that's fine with me and maybe even preferable to me. But if that is what you say you're going to do from day one, then you're not setting yourself up for the most success that you could have potentially in 2024 if you're looking at it in a vacuum.
I completely understand your logic with that. I personally don't want any parts of Tannehill.
Sure.
But I understand your logic is what I'm saying. Tannehill has 4 more touchdowns the past 2 years, more than Kenny Pickett has his first 2 seasons. 4. Tannehill's last year, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions with a 78 quarterback rating. And I would rather.
It hasn't been good for him. Yeah.
Right. All right. It hasn't. And I think we're wasting windows of guys like CamHayward, who's really long in the tooth, not much time left. TJ is probably about to hit the peak of his prime, or already has, and about to start downward. Still a good prime. Still going to be a 15, 20 sack guy a year. But Minka's back there getting older. I mean, we have too many pieces that Coach Tomlin has said himself, deserve to play in the confetti game, man. And so if we said we're gonna bring Kenny back and it don't work, and then we got Tannehill, we're gonna fall back on that. That's a wasted season to me.
Yeah.
Now, if you bring in Kenny, you truly want to compete, and you bring in somebody who wants to compete for the starting position, I think Tannehill will be happy just to be playing with Arthur Smith again and get a paycheck and talk to Kenny in practice about some ways plays work and looking at film and stuff like that. But it's not a threat to get on the field and win. We would definitely probably finish for the first time ever last in the AFC North next year if that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, it would be dog days season for the Steelers in that regard. I just wonder though, if the Steelers are ever going to get out of this type of rut without having a higher draft pick or making the trade up, because you don't find starting quarterbacks outside of the top 10 picks of the draft typically. I mean, it's very rare that you do unless you go get one in free agency. So I did want to bring this up from our good buddy Sean Gurley, who says, if that's the case, Betts, talking about my off-ramp plan for Kenny Pickett, Ryan Tannehill, 2025, maybe they're not so good this year. Who do we go? Who would you go with in that draft if you actually had a high pick? Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, they'll be gone, and the 2024 is weak. Yeah, I mean, it's not a great quarterback class, so yeah, are you just kind of restarting the process over? It very well could be. Maybe you do need to make a swing this year for a guy you can have for 2 seasons that puts you in contention, and then you try again in 2026. Try to stockpile some picks, have some forward thinking. But that's what I have an issue with, is I don't see the Steelers being very forward thinking. I think it's just kind of like, this is what we've got. Let's win with as many games as we can with what we got and make the best of it.
See,
in the end, that's not going to help you.
JB, if Kevin Colbert were still here, I would think that would be the the forward thinking, the way that the Steelers would be thinking. I think Omar Khan is too new wave, too analytics driven,
Ooh,
too all these things that
okay.
I think it's some smoke screens out here, man. They have to be trying to get a quarterback and not just saying Kenny Pickett is it. I don't like Shador Sanders. I don't know. Quinn Ewers, I don't like Quinn Ewers, even if the Steelers had
No.
a top 5 pick next year. I don't care for Quinn Ewers. He played at Ohio State, went to Texas. He's a good quarterback, but he's not one of those elite talents to me.
He
So
doesn't have any size at all. I mean, the guy's 6'1", 195. I mean, what are you going to do with that at the NFL level? That to me
yeah,
doesn't
no,
play. Yeah.
I completely agree. And he's been hurt in college already.
Yeah.
We talk about that. So let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Pick 51. If Michael Penix Jr. is there, do you take a shot?
Ooh, I'm not a Penix fan in this draft class. I'm not. I think maybe, and it's not just because he's left-handed, but I think he's a poor man's Tua Tagovailoa. And by that, I mean he's just a guy who gets the ball out quick and can be accurate, but I don't know if he's a playmaker at quarterback that you would need. I think he'll be a serviceable QB, but I just don't know if he's not a guy that elevates the room, in my opinion. So I wouldn't take that shot. No.
If he was there at 51, would it be conceivable the Steelers took that shot?
Yeah, I think it would be conceivable. Bo Nix in that range as well, probably. But again, I don't like that necessarily.
So my question is, would you take Justin Fields over either one of those guys?
100%.
So we're talking about the 51st pick, man.
Yeah.
A few years ago at pick 50, 52 or 53, we passed on a quarterback. We took Chase Claypool at 49, I think in 2020. And the quarterback after that, who I was advocating for in 2020 was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
We could have Jalen Hurts right now, and this discussion wouldn't even be relevant.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you never know outside of those types of things, but that was the Steelers not being very forward thinking, in my opinion. You didn't take a shot while you had the quarterback in place. You just kind of wrote it out with that guy and then hoped for the best the following year, and you end up with a Kenny Pickett at pick 20. And so, yeah, obviously Hurts was a different type of quarterback than anything you're going to get in the second round this year because he had that elite rushing ability. And I don't see any of the guys in the second round having that. So that to me is a little bit different play than going after a Michael Penix Jr., who's been hurt more than any other quarterback in this draft class and doesn't have a lot of that mobility anymore. And then Bo Nix has some mobility, but what does he give you that Kenny Pickett doesn't already do? They're kind of similar quarterbacks to me. So I would go a different direction, in my opinion, there.
No, I agree. Shout out to the homie Shannon White. He's in the live chat.
Yeah.
And it could be a few years before the Steelers quarterback situation is settled. And if we were on the homies or one of my podcasts, and I love the guy, my homie Claude Bishop would be in the Matrix right now for talking about Justin Fields is not worth a second round pick. And we're not talking about pick 32, like where we got Joey Porter. We're talking about pick 51, 52.
I know that. To me, that's a no-brainer there. If that is what you have to give up and that's all you end up having to give up, what are you going to get there that's going to boost your team that much more in 2024 than a quarterback with that type of upside? Nobody. I mean, there's nobody in this class that's going to do that for you.
Justin Fields, if he's calling the draft, would be a top 10 pick again this year. So we're looking at the upside and the potential. And sometimes, like in the NBA, general managers going at all the time. That's why they draft so many high school kids, right? Because they look at the upside and the potential. And sometimes in football, like I said, you got to swing for the fences. You got to take a chance at something like that when it's available to you, man.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing to me is like this team wins football games with zero explosion on offense. And they maybe they don't turn the ball over that much, but Justin Fields, if he throws 2 picks in one game, you have just as big a chance of him running 2 60-yard touchdowns in, and the Steelers don't have anything that does that right now on offense. So if you're talking about getting some explosion in the building at the expense of of, the 3 and out because you don't fumble the football. Give me that. Give me that every day of the week.
Absolutely, JB, man. And the thing is, I've been trying to tell people on some of our podcasts, man, that Justin Fields makes everybody else better because of the threat of Justin Fields.
Yeah.
You have to put a spy on Justin Fields. Justin Fields is probably arguably the best rushing quarterback in the NFL right now, better than Lamar Jackson. Right now, at rushing the ball from the quarterback position, I would take Justin Fields over Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson had, I think, like 840 yards last year, and Justin Fields was 200 yards behind him only and missed 4 games.
Yeah. Well, and I look at the supporting cast too, and some people will kind of overlook that, but this is the Bears we're talking about. The Bears aren't good. They're not a good football team. They didn't have a lot of they weren't blowing the doors down on people with all of the talent that they had on offense. I mean, their offensive line was putrid until the second half of last year, and it took a top 10 pick at right tackle to make them respectable. DJ Moore is a good wide receiver. The Steelers have way more offensive firepower than the Bears did, and I would venture to say that that Smith, the new offensive coordinator for the Steelers, is a much better offensive coordinator than Luke Getsy was for the Bears the last couple of years as well. So this is an upgrade across the board. It's not just Justin Fields coming with all his issues from the Bears. I think that you have a chance, if you're Pittsburgh, to settle him down where he has issue areas and highlight some of the epic abilities that he has. So it's not a 1-for-1 substitution. The guy in Chicago isn't going to be the exact guy in Pittsburgh if he ends up over there. Let's go from that talk to this. Do you believe that Justin Fields makes the Pittsburgh Steelers a Super Bowl contender in 2024? Or do you think that this is a guy that you're going to have to see what he can do? And is there any quarterback that could be available this offseason that you think does put them in the Super Bowl conversation with the roster that you could expect them to have after the draft and free agency?
We go further in the playoffs than we've been in the past 7 playoff years. So we win a game with Justin Fields. Now
that bar is pretty low too.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But we at least do that. Super Bowl contender. I mean, first year, I doubt it. But I think you got a guy, again, I've said this time and time again, with juice. With the juice to be on the field with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and put up points. I don't know if Kenny is probably a great game manager at some point in his career and best suited to come off the bench and win in a late game, put a drive together, but not that juice, man. And that's what you need in today's game, man. You have to be able to have something or somebody to fall back on.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, you talked about it a little bit ago. The guys on defense that won a championship in the worst way, the CamHaywards and TJ Watts of the world,
deserve to get a championship in a Steelers uniform.
Yep. You owe it to those guys to not waste 2024. I mean, if I was a betting man on like retirements, I would say this is Cam Hayward's last year in the NFL. I mean, he's won his Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He's given so much to the city, the fans, the team. He works hard. He's coming off a surgery, 2 surgeries this last year, both on the groin, and it's just tough when you're that age to be able to come back 100% from that. He's got a young family. He's got, a brother that's, young in his NFL career. Maybe he wants to get in more of a support role there. I would consider this 2024 might be his last year. I mean, there's a better chance than not that this could be his last season. And so what are you going out with? Are you going to go out with, well, we're going to try and see what Kenny Pickett can do for us? Or are we going to try our darndest to get a guy in the building who could elevate us to potential championship contention more so than we can expect out of Kenny Pickett? Even if Kenny Pickett takes a little bit of a leap here, it's not like he's going to go from what he was in 2022 and 2023 to Josh Allen in year 3, even if he takes a little bit of a leap. And I mean, that's not enough. That's just not enough, even if he gets better.
Hey man, that's why to me at the minimum has to be Russell Wilson. You have to bring in somebody that has experience, that's won, that's played in the confetti game and been there to try and give these guys a better chance. If Kenny beats Russell Wilson out, that's fine. You're paying Russell Wilson $4 million, probably at most. And
at most, yeah.
And if Kenny Pickett beats him out, you can sit Russell on the bench as a quality backup. You know? So as far as Cam, all the things you said about Cam, right on point. I agree with you. I mean, not only is he a Steeler, he's a Buckeye, so huge fan.
Yeah, let's go.
And but I do feel like maybe we get 2 more years out of him, because I think they'll have to restructure his contract this year, and he has 1 year left, and you can't restructure unless there's more than 1 year. So I think they might give him an extra year so they can move some of that money around. But that could be a voided year too. So it could be his last year. But I give him 2 more seasons.
Okay, 2 more. Yeah, I mean, in any case, it's winding down.
It is winding down. The clock is ticking.
Yeah, and TJ Watt will be what, 31 when the season starts? Something around there.
I think TJ
on his
way
to 31. Oh, really? I thought he was clearing 30 this season, but I may be wrong there. If I am, then I would be happy.
You could be right. I'm looking.
Sure.
TJ was born in 94, so he's 29 now. He'll be 30 in October during the season.
He'll be 30 in October. Okay. Yeah. So, man, it's weird to think that I'm older than TJ Watt, and I just don't see myself that way. But hey, that's the way it goes.
I'm almost older than Mike Tomlin. He got me by about 6 months.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. So the feeling then when he hit the league probably. So, this has been a great discussion here, and I think that whatever the Steelers end up doing at the quarterback position, it's a lot of it hinges on whether Mason Rudolph would indeed come back. And like we talked about, I don't think financially it's going to be feasible to bring him back for what he gives you. And so I just think somebody else is going to offer him more than the Steelers are going to want to bring him back for. And when you're talking about something along those lines, that might change the whole script anyway. They might be like, well, that didn't work. So what are we going to do now? It can't just be Kenny and a rookie. We can't do that. That ain't going to work. And so where are you going to go from there? And, that might change the script in and of itself. So maybe it is that they're not thinking about doing a big splashy play right now. Maybe that'll change as you approach the free agency period here in the tampering period, which, my gosh, it's only like 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks away.
And guys will be talking at the combine next week.
Oh yeah.
They'll be talking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you could get a trade done at the combine too. I mean, they've been talking about Justin Fields trade ramp up at the combine. I mean, that's a time to make a play. And especially say you go into this draft class, the Steelers, and you're like, we definitely want to draft a quarterback here. And none of those guys look good. What does that do for you? You know what I mean? We got to add somebody else outside of this to make it work. And,
hey, man, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I kind of like the idea of a Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, and now I'm blanking on his name. The former Steeler quarterback who took the league by storm. Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs. I like that room too. I like that room too.
3-man room. That's a good 3-man room, right? So.
For Josh Dobbs for a veteran addition, yeah. And he's gonna come in. No, he's gonna be third, no matter who wins the first team competition, QB1 competition. Again, back to Mason Rudolph, and I think if Mason Rudolph doesn't sign, I think that's when they start to look down those other avenues, like you're saying. And I think that's where first Russell Wilson and then probably Tannehill rise to the top of if Mason doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And again, do they want to pay Mason, say, $8 million to come in and compete? If he loses, he's a backup. Do they want to pay Russell Wilson $4 million and let him come in and compete? And if he loses, he's the backup.
Yeah. And then if Russell Wilson loses, that means you're seeing actual exponential growth from Kenny Pickett. It doesn't necessarily mean that if he beats out Mason Rudolph. So because contrary to popular opinion, and if you watch the tape, and believe me, I have sat down and watched the Russell Wilson tape from this season. This guy was at worst a league average quarterback in 2023 with moments where you were like, whoa, that was a little bit of that old Russ magic. And if he can bring that to Pittsburgh, that's an immediate upgrade on anything we had.
I agree. I think Russ had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
Yep.
I think Sean Payton did not want to let him do a little more in the offense. I think he was trying to protect him too much.
Well,
and I think at the end of it,
games too.
Well, I think that was to save him from injury, so they wouldn't have to pay.
Sure.
Because if he got hurt, they had to pay 2 years and not 1 year.
Yeah.
So I also think Sean Payton scapegoated him at the end too. So I don't think Russell is as bad as we think he is. I've told the guys on the other shows that I think Russell has been humble since the let Russ cook days. You know, I could truly see a conversation between him and Coach Tomlin where they both say, look, dude, Tomlin, man, I ain't been to a Super Bowl since 2010. Then Russ, you haven't won one since 2013.
Yeah.
So what if we both come together and try and make this thing work and get back to the Super Bowl where we're used to being? I think that's a true possibility, man.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And it's kind of funny. I've grown as a fan over the years, and I'm still fairly young, 30 years old this last year. So in my early 20s, it was Russell Wilson. He's a better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger. That's what the national media was all like. Russell Wilson's actually a better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger. He's winning Super Bowls. Roethlisberger's not. He's a part of good offenses that can actually get to the championship game, and Roethlisberger's not. That was all hogwash to me from the very beginning, and I kind of resented Russell Wilson for it for a long time. But now, full circle, he ends up coming to the Steelers this offseason. If that were to happen, I would be definitely on the happy end of fandom if that were to be the case.
No, I completely 34 million. I completely agree with you, man. I mean, I think in the big picture of things, Ben Roethlisberger's higher up on the totem pole than Russell Wilson for NFL quarterbacks. But Russ should have 2 Super Bowls if Pete Carroll runs the ball. Yeah. Don't you believe Mike Tomlin handed off to Najee Harris in the same situation, and Steelers come home with the Super Bowl? Ben's first Super Bowl was defensive driven. He didn't do much. It's like Russell's Super Bowl win. So Russell, I believe, has 9 Pro Bowls to Ben's 5, but it was way harder to get in the AFC when you got Manning and Brady and those guys over here. Yeah. So, I mean, but Russell's going to be a Hall of Famer. And he's 35 years old, and I can see him coming in, humbling himself, wanting to play for Coach Tomlin and leading the team and to being competitive in that AFC North like we were this year. And I think, we could probably finish at least third again, but maybe second. Yeah. I think Russell Wilson right now is better than Deshaun Watson.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Kenny Pickett is right now.
No, I don't. My big question to you would be, are you ready for Steeler country? Let's ride. Because that's coming if Russell Wilson comes to Pittsburgh. Are you ready for somebody other than Joey Porter saying let's ride in that huddle? I don't know.
that would be coming. That would definitely be coming. That's Russ's thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. All right. Hey, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on, Tate. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. We didn't get to a lot of questions. There weren't a lot of questions in the comment section, but a lot of your thoughts out there. We appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week here on the Steelers Q&A with more Steelers talk and a lot of combine talk probably coming up after that. A lot of prospects that'll be on the rise, some that are falling down. We'll see how that plays out, but tune in again next week. Tate, any last things you want to say before you go and plug in or give a plug for some of the other stuff you're doing for Steel Curtain Network and beyond?
Yeah, man. For Steel Curtain Network, we'll be on Wednesday evening. Pump your brakes.
Yep.
Myself, Shannon White, the Triple OG, Big G, who's been in the live chat continuously for this past 40 minutes. And then Friday, we got the Homies podcast, the Homies Overtime. That's me, Big G, B Dirt, and Pay. We recently just got the Know It Alls podcast is going to be airing on audio on the FFSN platform. We're looking forward to getting that thing started. We had that meeting, Bets, and I want to pick up some additional editorial responsibility. So that may be coming soon in the next couple of weeks.
Good deal.
So those things are what's going on. I appreciate you for having me. Don't forget, I also do in G and my little homie Relly Hall. We also do the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's Rather Cavalier podcast on FFSN. So, when basketball season is about to get cranky in the last third of the season, playoff time coming in April. So let's give that a listen if you can. And that's about it, man. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. I've got one last question for you here, Tate. The news broke this last week that the Steelers might be looking to, or not the Steelers, excuse me, City of Pittsburgh might be looking to add a pro basketball team. If that happens, you're moving over to that pro basketball team from the Cavaliers, right? I mean, that's just not even a question.
If they and because of your age, I'm guessing you haven't seen this movie, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, Dr. J. Julius Erving was that movie when he was younger. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Okay. YouTube it one day. Just watch the trailer. But if Pittsburgh gets a basketball team and they name that team the Pisces, because in that movie the Pittsburgh Pisces was named the team, I will switch over.
There you go.
I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio, right in the middle of Pittsburgh and Cleveland.
Yep.
And my dad was a Steelers fan, so I went Steelers football.
Yep.
There was no basketball team in Pittsburgh, so the Cavs was my basketball team. Even more so once LeBron came, because I rooted for him a little bit back in the late 80s, early 90s. Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, they were good, but they could never get past Michael Jordan. And then, I've rooted for some other teams. I know Cleveland's never going to do anything. Then when LeBron came in 2003, which has been about 20 plus years now, I've been a Cleveland Cavalier fan ever since. So that's where I'm at.
There you go. No need to switch. I don't think that's going to be happening anyway. So we'll see how it goes. All right, Tate, we're signing off here on the Steelers Q&A. We appreciate y'all chiming in and listening in. We'll be back next week. Until then, have a good one.